The evening had a heaviness to it, like the calm before a storm that I knew was about to explode right in our living room. "What do you mean she's moving in tomorrow?" I asked Greg, my voice tight with shock and barely hidden frustration. He didn't even blink. "It's settled, Elise. Mom's moving in. It's just the most practical thing right now." I stared at him, disbelief tightening in my chest. "And you made that decision all on your own? What happened to talking things through? What about the rooms, the plans we had?" He gave me that smug, all-knowing look, the one that always made my skin crawl. "We'll turn your office into a bedroom. It's the only option that makes sense." "My office? Greg, seriously? That's my one space where I think, where I breathe." He waved it off like it was nothing. "You don't need it. Plus, I'm the one covering the rent, $3,000 a month, remember?" His tone had that cold finality to it. "That gives me a say in how things are run around here." I stood there stunned. This house, my childhood home, passed down from my parents, suddenly felt like it wasn't mine at all. It belonged to Greg now. "But this is my family's house," I whispered, more to myself than to him. Greg's voice came back flat, empty. "Family home or not, I'm the one footing the bills. Get your stuff out of the office by tomorrow." That night, sleep never came. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the weight of realization pressing down on me. Our marriage wasn't what I thought it was. It wasn't love, it was control dressed up with silence. The next morning, the sound of furniture being dragged across the floor jolted me awake. My office, my space, was being cleared out. Marion arrived not long after, dragging her suitcases through the front door like she owned the place. And that was only the beginning. In the days that followed, the atmosphere grew heavier. Marion took over like she'd always lived there. She raided the kitchen, nitpicked everything I cooked, and found subtle ways to undermine me in front of Mia. I felt like I was walking on eggshells in my own home. Greg started pulling away. He barely talked to me anymore, came home later each night. The warmth, the partnership, all of it seemed to vanish into thin air. Our once lively home was now just a quiet battleground where fake smiles masked deeper wounds. One evening, I overheard them talking in the kitchen. "Elise doesn't mean much," Marion said with a sneer. "She should be thankful we're letting her stay." Something inside me snapped. This was my home. The place I grew up. The place where every corner held a memory, and now they were reducing it to rent payments and power plays. The next morning, I stood my ground. "I want to talk about the rent," I said to Greg, keeping my voice calm even though I was boiling inside. "This house belonged to my family. I never agreed to pay rent." Greg shrugged, his expression cold and smug. "Well, things change. I'm covering the expenses, so that pretty much makes it more my place now than yours." And just like that, it hit me. Everything we'd built, our marriage, our dreams, had been chipped away by his need for control and my quiet compromises. I called my dad, Nolan. My hands were shaking. "Dad, I need your help. It's about Greg." When I hung up, I felt something shift in me. I wasn't going to let them take over my life. They thought I'd fold, but they didn't know who they were dealing with. I was my father's daughter, and he raised me to stand tall. I sat alone in the now empty room that used to be my sanctuary. Memories came flooding back, those early days with Greg when everything felt so right. We were different, but we fit together like puzzle pieces. I could still see that autumn day on our first date, the way he laughed, the way he looked at me like I was the center of his universe. It was hard to believe that same man had just taken over my home like it was some piece of property. My phone buzzed. A message from Dad. "I'll handle it. Meet me at the shop tomorrow." That shop, his auto repair place, was a piece of my childhood. More than just a business, it was a symbol of his sweat, his grit, and everything he built for us. The next day, I walked in and was hit with that familiar smell of grease and metal. Dad was under a car, hands deep in the engine. "Dad," I called out. He slid out, wiping his hands on an old rag. "Elise, come on. Let's talk in the office." We stepped into his little corner of the world. The walls were lined with trophies from car shows and family photos. The room was a time capsule of better days. "I can't believe Greg's pulling this," Dad said, frustration clear in his eyes. I let out a long sigh. "I know, Dad. I've had enough. I want to fight back." He gave me a look, half surprise, half pride. "What's the plan?" "I want them out. Both of them. But I want to do it right, make them feel it, but legally." He leaned back in his chair, thinking. "We can draft a new rental agreement. Raise the rent. Make it too expensive for them to stay." A strange feeling washed over me, relief mixed with nervous anticipation. It was the beginning of a fight. One I didn't ask for, but I was ready. "Let's do it," I said, my voice steady and sure. Even I was surprised at how certain I sounded. Over the next few days, Dad and I got to work crafting a rental agreement that left no room for loopholes. Every line, every clause was intentional, meant to trap Greg and Marion legally without giving them a way out. I couldn't lie, there was a certain satisfaction in picturing their faces when they finally saw it. Back at home, though, things were only getting worse. Marian had officially dropped the act. Her constant complaints filled the air, nothing was ever good enough. She criticized everything from the clothes I picked for Mia to the brand of coffee I kept in the cabinet. Her jabs weren't loud, but they cut deep like tiny, well-aimed needles. One night, I overheard her on the phone. "Yes, I've finally got a lease in my pocket. This house will be ours soon." The rage hit me like a wave. I could barely believe what I was hearing. How could someone be so calculated, so cold? But instead of falling apart, her words lit a fire in me. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about protecting Mia from the bitterness, from the manipulation, from whatever this toxic mess was becoming. When the time came to show them the new lease, my hands trembled a little, but my heart was firm. I stepped into the living room holding the document like it was a shield. "Greg, we need to talk about the house," I said, steady and clear. He looked up, clearly caught off guard. "What about it?" Without a word, I handed him the papers. "It's the updated rental agreement. You should read it." I watched his eyes flick across the pages. Confusion set in first, then disbelief. By the time he got to the part about the new rent, his face was flushed with anger. "This is insane. You tripled the rent." "No," I said calmly, locking eyes with him. "It's what this place is worth. Market rate. If you can't cover it, you'll need to find somewhere else to stay." Greg's jaw clenched. "You can't do this to us." "Oh, but I can," I said, feeling stronger than I had in years. "This is my family's home, Greg. You seem to have forgotten that." I haven't. The days that followed were tense, filled with icy standoffs and loud, passive-aggressive silences. Marian, now completely unfiltered, let her true personality take over. One night while I was setting the table, she strutted into the kitchen and eyed the meal I'd just prepared. "This is dinner," she scoffed. "In my day, we knew how to feed our families properly." I bit my tongue and forced a smile. "It's healthy and Mia loves it." She rolled her eyes. "Children don't know what's good for them. That's the parent's job. Something you clearly struggle with." Her insults weren't even subtle anymore. But I'd learned reacting just fed her need for control. So I stayed calm even when every word she said made my blood boil. Day by day she picked me apart. Criticized the way I raised my daughter, how I cleaned, even what I wore. She was relentless and it was becoming unbearable. One afternoon I came home from a quick run to the store to find Mia sobbing on the couch. Marian sat nearby, flipping through a magazine like nothing had happened. "What's going on?" I rushed to Mia's side. "She's just being dramatic as usual," Marian said without even glancing up. "I don't have time for this nonsense." I hugged my daughter tightly, rage bubbling up inside me. How could she be so heartless? That wasn't just indifference, it was cruelty. Later that week, I had a business meeting lined up, something I'd been working toward for months. "Marian, would you mind watching Mia for a couple of hours?" I asked, hoping for some basic decency. She gave me a look full of annoyance. "Fine. But make it quick. I've got things to do." I came back to find Mia upset again, tears in her eyes, and no sign of Marian anywhere. "Where were you?" I demanded after calming Mia down. "I trusted you to keep an eye on her." Marian shrugged like it was no big deal. She was asleep. I stepped out for a bit. "What's the problem?" The problem was crystal clear. Marian didn't care. Not about me, not about Mia. She never did, and she never would. That night I called Dad, my voice shaky and full of frustration. "Dad, I can't take it anymore. She's not just coming after me, she's neglecting Mia now." His answer was immediate and firm. "Then we move faster. This isn't safe for either of you." The next day, I walked in on Greg and Marian huddled together in the living room, whispering like co-conspirators. "What are you scheming now?" I asked, my tone sharp. Greg glanced up, trying to play it cool. "Just going over some financial stuff. Nothing you need to worry about." But I wasn't buying the act. I could see the panic behind his eyes. The new lease had rattled them and they were scrambling to figure out their next move. There was a time when that might have made me feel victorious. But now it just made me feel cold and resolute. They'd pushed me too far. They thought I'd break. They thought I'd stay silent and small. But they were wrong. This wasn't just survival anymore, it was a fight for my home, for my daughter, and for the life they tried to hijack. The game they started? I was rewriting the rules. Every single day under that roof felt like walking a tightrope, trying not to fall while Marian kept shaking the wire. Marian's comments were like thorns, small, constant, and always aimed to wound. They chipped away at my patience, bit by bit. One evening, as I tucked Mia into bed, I heard her voice drifting from the living room. She was whispering to Greg, but her words carried sharp clarity. "Elise isn't fit to be a mother. She's too soft, too unsure of herself. You need someone who can actually run a household." I froze in place, my hands still resting on Mia's blanket. Her words sank into me like ice water. But what hurt even more was Greg's quiet response, a weak, murmured agreement that made my stomach turn. The next morning I faced him. "Do you really think I'm a bad mother?" I asked, my voice trembling but firm. He couldn't even look me in the eye. "It's not about that. It's about being responsible. Being adequate." That word stuck with me. Adequate. As if I were just barely enough. After that, Marian ramped things up. She started taking over, rearranging the furniture without asking, tossing my belongings as if they were trash, and completely dominating the kitchen. Bit by bit, she pushed me to the fringes of my own home, like I was some unwanted guest. Then one afternoon, I came back from the store to find Mia crying her heart out. Marian was calmly sipping tea in the kitchen, flipping through a magazine like she didn't even hear her. "Why aren't you with her?" I snapped, panic rising. "She needs to learn to soothe herself," she replied coolly. "It's part of growing up." That night I called Dad. I was shaking with fury. "I can't take it anymore," I told him, my voice breaking. "They're tearing everything apart. I'm losing my home. I'm losing Mia's joy. I can't keep doing this." His answer came without hesitation. "Pack your bags. Bring Mia. Come stay with me. We'll fix this." Leaving felt like defeat, but staying felt like surrendering Mia to that madness. The final blow came the next morning when I walked into the garage and found boxes stacked neatly, my things inside. Marian had packed up my life like it was junk she was clearing out. That was it. I gathered our essentials, hugged Mia tight, and walked out of the house without looking back. As the door clicked shut behind me, a wave of peace washed over me. I had no idea what the future held, but for the first time in months I could breathe. At Dad's place, the shift was immediate. The air felt lighter. Mia laughed again, really laughed, and the sound of it healed something in me. But the war wasn't over. I met with my lawyer the following week. "I want full custody of Mia," I said, steady and clear. "And I want the house back." He nodded. "We'll build a strong case. You have every right to fight for both." When the divorce papers hit Greg's hands, his reaction was predictable: shock, then outrage. "You're making a mistake, Elise. You'll regret this. You won't win." But I didn't flinch. "No. I've already lost enough. Now I'm fighting for what's mine." The proceedings were brutal. Courtrooms, paperwork, quiet moments where I had to hide my tears from Mia. Greg came at me with everything he had. He contested custody. He fought me over the house. Every move was meant to intimidate, to exhaust me into giving up. But I held the line. Dad and I finalized our plan regarding the rental agreement. It was airtight, designed to make staying in that house legally impossible for Greg and Marian. I returned to the house one afternoon with the new lease in hand. They were waiting, smug and curious. I handed Greg the document. He read silently, his expression shifting with every line. "This is outrageous," he snapped. "You've jacked the rent up to something insane." "It's the going rate for this property," I said calmly. "Take it or leave it." Marian jumped in, her voice trembling with panic. "You can't do this. This is our home." "No, it's my family's home," I corrected, my voice cold. "You made it clear I wasn't welcome. Now I'm simply making it official. You want to stay? These are the terms." Greg slammed the paper on the table. "We'll fight this. You'll see." But I saw something else in his eyes: fear. The control they had was slipping. They knew it. As I walked out, I glanced at Mia's forgotten toys in the living room. Bittersweet pain clenched my heart. This battle had cost us more than I'd imagined, but I knew I was on the right path. The following days were a blur of court dates and sleepless nights. I clung to Mia like a life raft, her tiny hands in mine the only comfort I needed. And then, during one hearing, Greg showed his true self. "Elise is unstable, Your Honor," he said, feigning concern. "She's not fit to raise a child alone." I didn't blink. I didn't break. Because I wasn't alone anymore, I had the truth on my side. I had strength. And I was done letting anyone write my story but me. My heart was racing as I sat there, listening to my lawyer calmly dismantle Greg's ridiculous claims. She laid out proof of my steady income and the strong, loving bond one have with Mia. Not long after, Greg's attorney came forward with a proposed settlement. Greg was apparently ready to give up any claim to the house if I agreed to shared custody and lowered rent. I sat there torn. A part of me just wanted this nightmare to end. But then I thought of Mia crying, Marian's cold indifference, and Greg's betrayal. This wasn't just about winning some court case anymore. It was about standing up for what's right. I looked them in the eye and said no. I'm not backing down, not when it comes to Mia's well-being or our home. Choosing to keep fighting wasn't easy, but it felt right. I wasn't that woman anymore, the one who let herself be pushed around. I was standing up for myself, for my daughter, and for the dignity that Greg and Marian tried to take from me. The line had been drawn, and I was ready to face whatever came next. The day of our final showdown felt like a storm rolling in. I showed up, legal papers in hand, to the doorstep of the place that used to be my safe haven, but now it felt more like a battlefield. Greg answered the door, his face stiff with defiance. Marion hovered behind him, clearly nervous. "What do you want, Elise?" Greg asked coldly. "I'm here to wrap this up," I said, handing him the revised rental agreement. His face went from smug to shocked in seconds. "This is insane." "No," I told him, steady as ever. "It's the going rate for a house like this in this neighborhood. If it's too much, you'll need to move out." Marion stepped forward, voice shaky. "You can't just do this. We don't have anywhere else to go." "That was the choice you made when you pushed me out of my own home," I said, locking eyes with her. Greg slammed the paperwork on the table. "We'll let the court deal with this," he snapped. "You're not kicking us out. This stopped being your home the moment you decided my rights and feelings didn't matter," I shot back. The room was thick with tension. The living room I once laughed and loved in now felt like a stranger's house, filled with bitterness instead of warmth. I glanced around, the memories washing over me, good ones, painful ones. But this place had become something else now. Just as I turned to leave, Marion's voice stopped me. "Elise, wait. We can talk about this. Maybe there's still a way to work it out." I paused, thought for a second. Then, with a calm I didn't know I had, I said, "There's nothing left to discuss. You chose Greg over me and Mia. That was your answer." And just like that, I walked out, leaving behind the ghosts of what once was. The days that followed were a blur of exhaustion and determination. The court battle dragged on, but I held my ground. I knew what I was fighting for: my daughter, my self-respect, and the justice I had been denied for too long. Eventually, the verdict came in. The court ruled in my favor. Greg and Marion had 30 days to pack up and leave. The news hit them like a punch. They hadn't expected to lose control. I watched from a distance as they loaded their things, the weight of their defeat written all over their faces. I saw it, the realization that their games had failed. The power they once had was gone. When I stepped back into that house, our house, it felt like the air had cleared. There was no celebration, just a quiet sense of justice. I walked through each room, reclaiming them for me and Mia. These walls had seen so much, but now they stood as witnesses to a fresh start. I knew it wouldn't be easy. There were still scars to heal and memories to process. But for the first time in ages, I felt hopeful. I had stood up to Greg and Marion. I didn't just survive, I came out stronger. This wasn't just a court win. It was a turning point in my life, a moment where I truly took it back. The legal mess was finally behind us. The house was quiet again, no longer filled with tension and conflict. I stood in the living room, taking it all in. Mia was playing nearby, her laughter breaking the silence, softening my heart. Watching her, I knew it had all been worth it. This wasn't just about walls and furniture, it was about creating a future where we could breathe and grow. When Greg and Marion walked away for the last time, I saw it in their eyes, that flicker of regret, of consequences finally catching up. Marion glanced back at the house, and for the first time, her face wasn't smug, it was sad. Greg didn't even look at me. He just walked off, shoulders heavy with defeat. In the weeks that followed, I poured myself into rebuilding. I reopened my little business, leaning on the comfort of old routines and the kindness of familiar faces. Mia blossomed in the calm, her smile returning, her energy bouncing off the walls. Then one afternoon, as I was locking up the shop, I saw someone I hadn't seen in a while standing at the door. It was Greg. I barely recognized him at first, something in his eyes had shifted. The smugness, the defiance, it was gone. All that was left was a quiet humility I'd never seen in him before. "Elise," he started, his voice unsure, I wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything." I looked at him, caught somewhere between surprise and disbelief. "Why now, Greg?" He let out a long, tired sigh. "Losing the house, the divorce, it all hit me. I finally saw how much I messed up. How I let my pride and my mom's influence destroy everything that mattered." His words hung in the air. And in that moment, every hurt, every betrayal, every sleepless night ran through my mind. I took a breath and said, "Your apology doesn't undo what happened. It doesn't erase the damage." I paused, watching him fidget. "But for Mia's sake, I'll accept it." He gave a small nod, and I saw something flicker in his expression, maybe relief, maybe regret. "Thank you, Elise," he said quietly. "I really am sorry." And with that, he turned and walked away. As I watched him go, I felt something shift inside me. That chapter, the chaos, the pain, it was finally closing. His apology didn't rewrite the past, but it gave me a sense of closure I didn't know I needed. The months rolled by, and I threw myself into turning the house into something new, something ours. I painted the walls fresh, bought new furniture, and filled the space with laughter instead of arguments. Slowly, it became a home again. Mia and I made new memories in every corner of that house. I'd often sit on the porch watching her run through the yard and let my mind drift back over everything we'd been through. The road had been long and brutal, but it also showed me just how strong I really was. I had stared down betrayal, fought for what mattered, and reclaimed my life one piece at a time. This wasn't a story about revenge. It was about rising up, about reclaiming my voice and choosing a better path not just for me, but for Mia too. The house that had once echoed with anger and heartbreak had become a place of comfort, love, and second chances. It stood as proof that sometimes the toughest battles lead to the most meaningful victories. As the sun dipped low and bathed the yard in golden light, I pulled Mia into my arms, holding her tight. We had made it. We had weathered the storm. And at last, we were home.